All right, let's get right into it. We're not talking about some dusty back office IT task today. Nope. We're talking about the critical safety net that holds our entire digital world together, database recovery. This is what stands between a tiny little hiccup and a full-blown catastrophe.
Seriously? Just pause and think about that for a second. What if your company's sales data, all your customer information, your entire history, just poof, gone? What would you even do? This isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's a very real risk, and having a plan for it is exactly what we're breaking down today.
So to really get our heads around this, let's use an analogy. I want you to picture your database as this incredible one-of-a-kind library. It's not just a bunch of files, right? It's the collected wisdom, the history, the total value of your entire organization. It's priceless, and you can't just build it again from scratch.
Now, if we stick with that library idea, these concepts get really simple. A backup? That's just you making copies of all your books and tucking them away in a super secure vault. Easy enough. But recovery? Recovery is the real magic. That's the detailed step-by-step blueprint you have ready to go. The plan to rebuild the entire library from the ground up after a disaster, using those copies you saved.
Okay, so any good plan needs the right set of tools. Let's open up the toolkit and see what we've got to protect our precious library. And spoiler alert, this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. Each tool has a very specific job. So, at a high level, you've got a few different ways to copy your books. There's a full backup, which is pretty much what it sounds like, photocopying the entire library. Then you have an incremental backup, where you only copy the pages that have changed since your last copy was made. A differential backup is a little different. It copies everything that's changed since the last full backup. And finally, a transaction log backup. Think of this like a librarian's hyper-detailed journal, noting every single change as it happens. Each one is a totally different strategy. And right away, you see the classic trade-off. On one hand, you've got the full backup. It's incredibly simple and safe. You have a complete copy of everything. But man, it can be slow and it eats up a ton of storage space. On the other hand, you have the incremental backup. It's super fast and efficient, just grabbing the new stuff. But when it's time to rebuild, you have to piece together a whole bunch of little changes, which can be a much trickier puzzle to solve. You know, just having the tools isn't enough. You need a strategy. And that strategy, every single time, boils down to a critical balancing act between two things: time and data. This is where we get strategic and build our defense plan.
And it all comes down to answering two fundamental questions. First, your recovery point objective, or RPO. This is basically asking, how much data are we okay with losing forever? Is it a whole day's worth of books, an hour, or just a few minutes? Second, there's your recovery time objective, RTO. This one's about speed. How fast does our library absolutely have to be open for business again?
And listen, this is so important. RPO and RTO, these aren't just nerdy terms for the tech team. They are massive business decisions. They have real financial consequences. The difference between losing an hour of data versus losing only a minute of data isn't a small tweak. The cost and complexity of the technology to achieve that can go up exponentially. This is all about business survival.
So let's put a number of it to make this real. Imagine your business sets an RTO of 2 hours. That is a hard deadline. It means from the very second that disaster strikes, a giant countdown clock starts. The entire library, every book, every shelf has to be rebuilt and running in under 120 minutes. That one number dictates your plan, your tools, and your budget.
So you've got your tools, you've got your strategy, you're all set, right? Safe and sound? Not even close. Because a plan that just exists on paper is, well, it's just paper. You have to run the fire drill. You have to test your whole recovery plan before a real fire ever breaks out. I love this quote because it just says it all, doesn't it? If you can't actually take those copies from your vault and rebuild your library with them, then you don't really have a backup. All you have is a very expensive, totally useless security blanket. The fire drill is where you prove that this thing actually works. So what does one of these fire drills actually look like? Well, you start by intentionally simulating a failure, but in a safe test environment, of course. Then you run through your entire restore procedure, every single step. After that, you validate that the data itself is correct and complete. And, this part is so critical, you verify that the applications that actually use that library are working exactly as they should. See, the whole point of the fire drill is to hunt for those hidden landmines. You're looking for things like corrupted backup files that won't actually work, or maybe a crucial transaction log is missing. Or, and this is a big one, you discover the whole restore process just takes way too long, blowing right past your RTO. These are the nightmares you need to find in a drill, not when everything is actually on fire. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this all comes together in the real world. We're going to walk through a scenario where the alarm is real, the pressure is on, and that clock is ticking. So here's the situation. It's 11 a.m., peak shopping time for an online store, and the whole system just crashes. Hard. Now, the business has been very clear about their goals. The RPO is 15 minutes. They absolutely cannot lose more than 15 minutes of orders. And the RTO is 2 hours. They need to be back up and selling stuff before 1 p.m. Okay, so let's watch how this unfolds. Their plan was smart. A full backup every night at 2 a.m., and then those detailed transaction log backups every 10 minutes. So when the system dies at 11 a.m., the team jumps into action. They restore that big 2 a.m. backup, then they apply all the little log backups, one by one, right up to the last one they have from 10:50 a.m. This means they only lost 10 minutes of data, easily beating their 15-minute RPO. And because they've practiced this, the whole process is smooth, and they get the site back online well before 1 p.m. RTO met. That's a perfect execution of the plan when it mattered most. So what's the big takeaway here for you? This checklist really boils it all down to the key questions you need to be asking. First, does your plan actually meet the needs of the business, the RPO and RTO? Are your backups stored somewhere safe, off-site and away from the main library? Have you actually tested the restore? Do you know for a fact that it works? Is the data you get back correct? And finally, is the whole thing secure? In the end, it really all comes down to this. Your data, that digital library we've been talking about, it's one of the most valuable assets your entire organization owns. And it's not a question of if something will go wrong, it's really just a matter of when. So the final question I'm going to leave you with is this. Is your fire drill ready?